Morning guys, this is Doug from Third Stall Garage. It is Saturday in February in Michigan. It's 18 degrees out, lightly snowing, and it is time to head out to the Third Stall Garage, turn the heat on, and today we're going to be working on installing the braces in the strut towers from Open Tracker Racing, and I'm going to be working on the Shelby drop, and I'll explain why I chose to do that. Thanks for being part of this. Let's bump the heat up and warm it up in here. Today I'm installing these support braces from Open Tracker Racing. These braces go into the bottom of the shock tower, so they sit right in this area that I just painted black. Weld them in there. You'll see that I'll weld them all the way around the perimeter, and that creates a box here just to add some more rigidity to the shock tower. This side on mine had a couple repair patches welded in, so I needed to grind the edge of this just a little bit and bend these two tabs in slightly. My passenger side is in good shape and didn't need to make any modifications there. What I did was placed them in, traced around it with a Sharpie, and then taped off slightly less than that. And I'm just spraying the inside of that with internal frame coating from Eastwood just to protect that in case it should be mostly sealed up, but it should be, I want it to be protected from rust in the future. I also drilled 2 holes in the corners, ended up grinding that one out just a little bit to make sure that any water or moisture that got in there had a way out. Once this is dry, I will pull the tape off, and then I'm going to spray. I've already bared the steel, ground it down around the outside. I'll spray that with weld-through primer, and then we'll weld that in. Also today, I'm going to work on installing the Shelby drop, which will drop these 2 holes 1 inch, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Using weld-through primer, I did a video on that recently as to whether that's worth it or not. I convinced myself that it was, but if you want to see how I came to that conclusion, I encourage you to watch that video. All right, I'm going to spray the underside of these with weld-through primer just to add a layer of rust protectant to those before I put them in there, because once they're welded in, Lord willing, nobody will ever see the underside of them again, and I don't want them to rust. In the previous episode, I repaired these front seat risers or seat pans. I'm not sure what they're called. My bottom edge on these, let's see if I can tilt the camera down. The bottom edge right here, I think the previous owner had cut them out in a pretty crude way, and so I patched that in. In the meantime, I found that underneath this, there was like a 1/2 inch of sandblasting grit that had gotten in there. So I was able to get that out. While I've got that clean, I'm going to use the same internal frame coating to reach this wand through the holes, spray it all around inside it. It's a pretty runny, liquidy paint. Seems to kind of stick to everything, which is perfect because then it soaks into all the cracks and divots and be my chance to protect it while it's there. Later, I'll do this on the underside of the car as well. So I did this once before, but I think that I had just sprayed it on top of all of that grit that was in there. So now while I've got it clean, it's a chance to do it again. When you're done with the wand, you definitely want to clean it. And I've learned if you the end of the brake clean hose fits in there perfectly, and maybe you can watch this clean out. You can also see how it sprays kind of in a 4 pattern. Now it doesn't look clean because that's on the outside, but Now my tube is nice and clean for next time, and I will probably just save it in case I ever need to use something like this again. Now, is this messy? Yeah, it's a messy way to do it. You can see that it leaks and flows out, but really that's what I want. I wanted to put too much in there so that, you know, it flowed into any available cracks and things. I would probably wipe that up over there with a rag, but I feel like that just helps protect the car. All right, let's talk about doing the Shelby drop. The Shelby drop is a 1-inch drop of these two holes. These two holes mount the upper control arm, or the UCA, as you'll see in shorthand, bolts just like that. There's an upper control arm and a lower control arm, and they go up and down in tandem. So if you kind of think of it as lower control arm, upper control arm, and they go up and down like this. In theory, if they're exactly the same length and exactly the same dimensions, the wheel ends up going up and down straight as well. That's not the case in these because the upper and lower control arms aren't identical. The stock design from Ford wasn't quite ideal, according to Shelby, and he wanted to improve it. And what happened is as the upper control arm, or as the tire goes up and the upper control arm goes up, it's designed in such a way that it forces the tire out. And then as the tire drops down, it causes the opposite situation to happen. Lowering this pivot point 1 inch corrects that and makes it a little bit better on the upper swing, and on the lower swing, keeping a greater contact patch between the tire and the pavement. There are a couple important things to note. You can't just drop these holes down 1 inch. They aren't level. The front hole is higher than the back hole. So each hole needs to go down exactly 1 inch. Don't just drop them. If you imagine the line going through the center of these holes, don't just drop them parallel to that line. That would actually shift the holes farther forward in the car. So the way to do that is you buy a little template. And there's a user on Reddit who followed it, who said he did the Shelby drop, and he mailed this to me, which is awesome, but they're not that hard to buy. So basically what'll happen is you will bolt this in. I'm gonna use my actual upper control arm. Bolt that in, and it gives you two 1/8 inch diameter holes that, once this is bolted in, will give you the exact location of your Shelby drop. And then you'll drill those two 1/8 inch holes and then step them up till you get to a 1/2 inch diameter hole, and then you'll have them in the right spot. I hope to weld these shut, blend it in so it looks as nice as it can. What are the effects of it? Slightly better handling, better cornering. Mine's gonna be a weekend warrior. Will it make that much of a difference? Probably not. But again, it's an improvement and I wanna do it. The other thing that it does is you're dropping these holes 1 inch, which does lower the suspension, or technically raise the suspension and raise the tire, therefore lowering the car. Now, a 1 inch drop of these holes, because this is a pivot point, really only nets you 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch of lowering of the front of the car. But I will do this on both sides, and that will give the car just aesthetically a little bit better of a look. So use this on this side, go over to the other side, and use the right hand piece, drill those holes. I'm gonna do that now before I weld in my shot tower brace, because that way I can bolt in my upper control arm and just make sure there's no interference with that brace. So the plate is installed. Sorry, you can hear my furnace running in the background. Here are the two 1/8 inch diameter holes. I don't know if you can tell, but they're not directly parallel to this axis, but instead they're vertically down. So this 1/8 inch hole is directly 1 inch below that hole, 1 inch below. So I will drill those two through and then enlarge them to a 1/2 inch. I stopped recording me drilling the holes because that's frankly pretty boring to watch. And I went through, I think, 4 drill bits, 1/8 inch all the way up to 1/2 inch. And then got my upper control arms to mount in the shock tower. Let me show you that. Here they are mounted in the lower position. You can see the original holes up on the top yet. What I ran into was this brace that I want to mount in. You can see a wear mark right there, rubbed on the bottom of the upper control arm. Probably right in there somewhere. Now I could have pounded that a little bit flatter, ground it down a little bit, but yeah, I don't really like messing with the structure of the upper control arm. So I ended up on both sides doing a lot more grinding and trimming on this brace to get it to lay down in almost another 1/4 inch. And I've been grinding for about the last hour and have both of them now seated low so that the upper control arm does not hit at this point. So I'm going to re-clean up the steel all the way around, hit it with weld through primer, and then burn that puppy in. I'm also going to clean up and close off these 2 holes. Probably not completely necessary at all, other than just feel like, why do you want to look at 2 holes in your shock tower for the rest of the car's life? Seems like the right thing to do to try to clean them up. So onward and upward, here we go. All right, time to test fit one more time. Got the weld through primer around the edges, the back side of the brace. There we go. I'm going to tack weld that in and then test fit the upper control arm one more time. Both of the upper control arms are in, nice and smooth. You can see how it lays flush right against that brace after the 1-inch Shelby drop, which I'm sure is how they designed it. This side looks good too. All right, take them back off. Time to burn them in. All right, they're welded in. The dilemma in making these videos is, do I show you just my best welds so you'll think well of me? Or do I show you the crappy welds so you'll realize that everybody's going through a learning curve? If you want to see my nice welds, I feel kind of good about those. You can almost imagine they look like dimes stacked up. And then you get bumpier, uglier ones here where I didn't have my wear speed dialed in and I either didn't clean it up enough or the wear speed was too high. And then these look pretty good. And then there's a big ugly blob there and those look pretty good. And then it gets all lumpy around there. So it is what it is. I'm gonna grind this smooth just to make sure any water and debris flows off of there. All of this stuff on top, I'm gonna leave the same. Other side, similar. Some welds look decent, others not too bad, not so great. Is what it is. I'm learning. Shows that, yeah, I'm willing to try. All right, let's clean them up a little bit. All right, it's cleaned up, on at least the bottom edge. I'm gonna leave that. And the last thing I wanna do is I wanna fill my upper control arm holes. So you'll see a little copper backing plate there. I just took a copper plumbing fitting, squashed it, and I've got a little board holding it in place for me. So I'm gonna fill that hole with weld, see how flat it looks on the other side, and do it to that hole too. And hopefully grind it smooth and it will look stock from the outside and I'll have my Shelby drop done. All right, the first hole is welded in. Might be a little low, but I can grind that smooth. It's a little high in the middle. The other side, I don't know. I'll have to grind that a little bit and see if more weld needs to be added or not. I'm not sure this is that exciting for you to watch, so I'm gonna work on this and I'll show you the progress when I'm done. And that is a wrap on this episode. Brace is in, Shelby drop, holes are cleaned up. Looks pretty good on the back side too. Sorry you're upside down. I'm gonna give myself 2 thumbs up for that project. Moving forward, probably just because I want to get it over with. Next, I think I'll be working on the floor pan, trying to clean up some of these welds. And then a couple episodes from that, I hope to be doing something with those. You'll have to wait and see what it is. Have a great day. Thanks for being part of Third Style Garage. Take care. God bless. Stay safe.